Well, I'm glad that we're doing this post-lunch because I would like a show of hands, please. How many people here eat lion? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, fine. Hands up. How many people eat penguin? That's for you, Poppy. Nobody? Interesting. The reason I ask this is because national statistics, even global statistics, will tell me that 2/3 of folks in this room, myself included, have eaten fish or some kind of seafood in the last 30 days. And I'm always curious about how people perceive fish compared to maybe penguins or lions. I mean, look at this goofy, I call them the goofy Labradors of the sea. These are Goliath grouper. They grow to be 8 feet long, 1,000 pounds in weight. And even though many people protect them, they used to be a fully protected species in Florida, they're also food for many folks in the world. So we have a conundrum that many other folks don't face with the wildlife, in that the species that my team and I at MarAlliance are trying to conserve are also essential food for over 3 billion people in the world. How do you balance that? How do you meet with success? And so I want to tell you a little bit more about that. And also, during the course of this talk, urge you to consider, if you do eat seafood, that's fine, but maybe bring your footprint down a little bit. Just consider it. And the reason for that is because we think that we have tons of fish. Every time I talk to folks, I think that 71% of the planet is covered by seas, oceans. Fish abound, they're everywhere. But what we found over the last 50 years through multiple studies is that we have lost over 90% of the groupers, the sharks, the big fish in the sea, the top predators. We've eaten them. So we ask, how can we bring this back? And especially in light of relativism. Again, what do I mean by that? Well, we won't eat lion and penguin, but we'll eat fish. And now, in the realm of seafood, octopus. Who's seen my octopus teacher? Ooh, lots of arms, exactly. Did you guys change your attitudes towards octopus after seeing my octopus teacher? Yes, I see arms up. I have to say, it was a really impactful film. If you haven't seen that documentary, please do see it. And what that meant is that a lot of people said, I'll eat fish, I'll eat shrimp, but I'm not going to eat octopus because they're intelligent and I have an emotional connection with them. And I said, that's brilliant. However, if really well managed, octopus fisheries are really sustainable. And an octopus usually only lives about 2 years and very prolific in its output. But, a nurse shark, I like to call these the puppy dogs of the sea. And they truly are the puppy dogs of the sea. They're like, what you doing? What you looking at? What's going on there? You got something for me? How about that? How about that? Here, lionfish is over here. Come get it. Literally, they will guide you. They go really smart. And these guys only mature at 15, 20 years. And they live to be decades. And they form really good associations with people. You can always tell that each one has different behavior and more. Manta rays. Manta rays, for those of you who may have had an opportunity to swim with one, you know immediately that this is an incredibly smart animal. In fact, I'm a dog owner. I hate to say dog owner. I love dogs. I have 2 dogs. But my dogs, if they look in the mirror, they're not like, hey, that's me. But a manta ray has that ability, and most dogs do not. That tells you a lot about their level of intelligence. And speaking of Labradors, and yet these are fished, and not just for their meat, but also their gill rakers. It's a really big trade, especially over in the Pacific. Speaking of Labradors, we're back to our goofy lab of the sea, the Goliath grouper. this huge, can be 8-foot-long fish, again, really gets to know the different people. Not the brightest. Not the brightest. Yeah, 2 sandwiches short of a picnic. But I love them nonetheless, and just to show you the kind of personality that they have. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when people say, oh, fish are cold, they have no personality, they're dumb, etc. Well, the dumb bit, as I mentioned, maybe a little bit, but dumb by what standards? Because these animals can do 1,000-kilometer migrations to a particular site where they're spawning and back again. And how do they do that? No WhatsApp. So, and they have a particular behavior, and they're even jealous. They get jealous. I want to introduce you to Lola. This is in Cuba. She's like, hey, look at me. Me, focus on me. I make funny noises underwater, so forgive me. I'm trying to get some shots of the sharks behind me. She's like, no. No, my friend. Me. It's about me. And this went on and on and on. So I have great shots of Lola, or at least Lola's lips, but not much else. And why am I focusing on something like the Goliath grouper? Primarily because they're iconic fish that unfortunately have also been trophy species. And they have been practically fished out of existence. They're critically endangered in most sites around the world where they exist. And we view trophy animals on land with the gas, but not necessarily at sea. So again, it's that relativism that we need to wrap our heads around. And the other thing that we need to wrap our heads around is we talk about the longevity of some of these species. In the case of finfish, we've gotten better and better at determining how old these animals are. And these wildlife have these crystalline structures in their heads. They're called otoliths. And the largest ones are called sagittal otoliths. And we pull them out, embed them in resin, cross-section them, and literally they have bands in them like tree rings. And you can tell how old these animals are. And we all thought, oh, they're only 8 years old. They might reach maturity at 1 year, like a cat or a dog. What we're finding now is 6 or 7 years for a Goliath grouper, reaching 37, 50 or more years old. And so this is why we're also realizing that these animals are just not bouncing back, even though we've got a lot of great policies in place. We've got marine protected areas, we've got bans on species, and so much more. But it's not keeping up with the generational times and the very few adults that we have left in the seas. And you're going to be shocked by this one, because I was. One of my team members, Ivy Barrymore, just completed her PhD with us. She's our technical coordinator, working with fishers as that's our entire approach. We co-create knowledge and science and conservation with traditional fishers. Working with Mario here from Honduras, looking at deep sea fisheries. And lo and behold, new techniques enabled us to ascertain how old these relatively small snappers are. 68 years old. That blew me away. That blew her away too. But you know what was even more impactful? It blew all of the fishermen away. Because then they went, oh, hang on a second. You can do the math. And when you know that only a few of the million eggs are actually going to reach adulthood, you've got some of the similar vulnerabilities that you see in mammals and terrestrial megafauna. And these species aren't even endangered. But this one is. And I want to tell you a little bit about the large-toothed sawfish. Some of you already have heard me talk a little bit about this species. It is one of the rarest vertebrate on this planet. And It is critically endangered to extinction. There are only 5 sawfish species in the world, and the large tooth can reach 23 feet in length. Literally, it's like a dragon in our midst. They love the rivers in the tropics, the estuarine regions. That picture was taken in the Sarastún River between Guatemala and Belize over 50 years ago. And another thing that happened over 50 years ago was the last one of this species was actually caught in US territorial waters. They haven't been seen since. And so I've been looking for them for 27 years, doing tons of encuestas, surveys, and also even doing environmental DNA, where you filter a lot of water. You're sitting there for hours and hours and filtering water in the hopes that some of the DNA sloughing off of some of these animals gets stuck to a filter and tells us, ta-da, we have sawfish in this area. And after hundreds of these surveys and many samples, we found the kind of the hot spot, potentially, of large-toothed sawfish. This is the Darien of Panama, one of the remotest parts of all of the Americas. And it's also known as the Darien Gap. And this is where all the migrants have been coming through under horrific conditions. And so they are coexisting with the last lifeboat population that we know of in this entire region. I had shared with you a couple of years ago that we had one of the best discoveries ever, and that's the other thing. Exploration is meant to be done by those who are on the front lines. And even though I had been looking for sawfish for 27 years, it gave me such joy to see our Embera community coordinator, Jairo Conampio, catch the first large-toothed sawfish with our network of fishers in the Darien. But this is the best bit, is that since that time, working with fishers, expanding the network and more, we've actually caught many more large-toothed sawfish. In fact, ours seems to be the largest hotspot for large-toothed sawfish outside of possibly Australia. And even better is more of the fishers are joining us in moving away from being sawfish fishers, being community sawfish investigators and measuring them and releasing them. And in fact, we found over the course of the last 6 months that we found the first nursery for large-toothed sawfish that is known throughout the Americas. And that's really thanks to our fisher partners. We have work to do still. So huge victory, massive victory. We're thrilled. And we're seeing these attitudes and behaviors change. And also the surveys told us that when sawfish are caught in nets, 4 out of 5 survive. So we're working with fishers to ensure that they disentangle them and release them if they're still alive. But sometimes they get annoyed. And this is what happens. They'll chop off the rostrum. And sometimes they'll sell the rostrum and sell the teeth. There's an illegal wildlife trade. So we have to go against that. So how do we incentivize even more? We work with them on fish assessments. We do release prizes. But we're also working with the women. And some of you have seen outside some of the sawfish artisanry that has been made. And it's the women in their families who are making these exquisite pieces of art. And as a result, more money comes into the family, into the community, and they're more likely, and in fact they have said, we're much more willing to release sawfish. And so if you haven't got a sawfish yet, there are a few left, by the way, just letting you know. And it's not just women, it's also the next generation. It's incredibly important that as we change these attitudes towards fish, towards fishing, how we try to move away from nets, if not all the time, at least some of the time, and in some of the key areas like nursery sites. We also need to inspire our next generation. And we have this year inaugurated our Z scholarships. They were created in memoriam really for two people in our team who unfortunately and tragically passed away, Zeddy Seymour and Zé Luis Monteiro from Cape Verde. And we're really excited that they're going to be taking on the baton. And this is really key because this year we completed 10 years as MarAlliance working with fishers in the co-creation of knowledge, science, monitoring, conservation action, and even policies. And we've seen massive changes. We've managed to get nets banned, marine protected areas expanded, species protected, and so very much more. And this is thanks to you, because MarAlliance was created thanks to WCN and all of you supporting WCN and our work. So we're really looking forward to the next 10 years and longer with our fabulous cohort of fishers. And there are many ways that you can actually support this incredible work and make changes yourself, lower the footprint on seafood, just consider it. And these are the different ways. One of them is supporting our long-term monitoring, which helps us make all these discoveries and shift attitudes and thought processes and behaviors and consumption. Support a scholar. $5,000 carries one of these youth through a 4-year degree in a tropical country. That's pretty amazing. I wish I could do that for my children. And we do have something that is really mind-blowing. That's our incredible immersive expeditions. So if you're interested in joining one of those where you get integrated into our team, researchers and fishers, it is mind-changing. It's life-changing for many. And we hope you would consider joining us. It's such a privilege to have you supporting our work. And I hope I get to see you out in the sea. Thank you very much.